Hey guys and gals of the interwebs, welcome to another Senseless Media podcast brought to you by our sister company Ogre, a gaming apparel and other nifty loot company with stuff made by gamers for gamers. Click the link below to check out our nifty gifties, and yes, you may name your firstborn after our brand if you would like. Joining us today on our podcast is Mark Red Raccoon Lee, purveyor of yoga pants and the camels that towed away his heart. Matt Meatball Conley, member of the Shadow Council that dictates the price of fine cheeses and sausages globally. And lastly, me, Russ Pitch and Poop Ingle, not talented, not pretty, but a necessary evil against the rise of artificial intelligence because I've watched all the Terminator movies. We also have with us a special guest, Pagan Dreamer. We've talked about him on stream. He's amazing. Here he is, live in because you know what? He knows way more than we do about what we're talking about tonight. So,
especially me.
Yeah, and forgive him for living in America's hat, Canada, but, you know, it's okay. He's a master tier chef. Yeah. Like, he can make the hell out of some, like, weenies and franks. Like, let me just tell you.
He's got the best weenies, I tell you.
So, yeah, we'll just start off with saying, hey, Pagan, welcome to our show.
Hey, thanks, man.
And then, yet again, Mark, bows to you. Once again, having you with us.
Hello.
Hey,
I think he's
great.
there. I think he's there.
And then, of course, the wizard behind the curtain, our Matt Meatball Conley. What's up, man?
Lightning bolt?
What? I don't even know.
Sure.
Is there a remote for that? You know, we need to have one. So today, basically, we're going to talk about a lot of things, but we're going to start with the EU and NA Finals in the League of Legends. Wow, what games they were. Both of them 3-0 stomps. Well, maybe not stomps, but both of them 3-0 victories from one team just taking it from the other teams. So how about we talk about Europe first? Did you guys watch the games?
Yeah.
What'd you think, Pagan?
I think they were a bit more close, more entertaining than the NA LCS. Like, I think G2 had some good idea of what to do in the early game. They were able to get lead in pretty much both game early. And I think just that Fnatic got executed their team fight way better.
Oh man, Reckless had a match of his life 3 times in a row.
Oh yeah, that was some anime shit there. Like nothing straight out of an anime. Like I think the series would have been a lot closer, but then every time the game was close, Reckless happened.
His hair turned white. He stood at the same place for 30 minutes, and then he blew solar rays at the other team. Is kind of what I experienced with it. But
exactly, and it's 30 episodes.
And you know what? Also, what the hell, North America? Why can't we have a big stadium with cool intros? You just got Freak talking about people. I mean, dude, the shoutcaster, Quick Shot, he gave a speech in front of the place, walked in, had flags, they had masks. It was amazing. They shook hands and stuff, and then we're just hey, how's it going? Welcome to North America. Well, I guess let's play some games. Gosh, I mean,
they were in some sort of club in Miami, and they were kind of hanging out.
Yeah, the venue was really disappointing for NA. 3 years ago, they were making it in the Madison Square Garden in New York, and now we're just in some small theater nowhere in Florida.
I know,
it's Miami, though.
It's all going to Overwatch, I guess. NA LCS is done. Poor guys. Nah, I was definitely disappointed in the intro with that, but yeah. So I guess we can break it down game by game. So game 1, we had the victory for Fnatic. And let's look at some stats. Let's see. Reckless went 10-0-5 in that game. 10-0-5. And the deaths were spread out pretty evenly across the board for the rest of the team. It just seemed like Reckless was everywhere that whole game.
He also had 100% kill participation in that game.
Yeah, and Hillisang, Hillsing killed it, man, with his supporting that game. I mean, but I think honestly, like, I think Braum is basically like a free win most of the time.
Yeah.
He, other than Janna, I think he's probably one of the most frustrating supports to play against. Right
I feel like every time that we play games, if you play Braum, we win. If you play anything else, we lose. Like, it's just.
Okay, so I'm only go with Braum.
To be
Okay.
fair, we are playing against Tom Kent, who might be the best support ever. Like, if your carry is about to die, what does he do? Eat him up, run away, and you're good to go.
So did G2's support just like poop his pants or something then? Like,
I
if
mean,
he's the
they-
best support? What do you think led to their demise in the first game? Like, what do you think happened?
Totally the Baron throw.
Oh, okay, yeah, and you know that happened in both the NA and Europe,
Yeah, and both in the first game too.
right? And do you think that sets a precedent for the rest of the games mentally?
In NA, I think so. Yes, like you could see that 103 kind of tilted after that first game. They weren't able to get their shit together at all after that.
I mean, in the first game, 100 Thieves, their jungle is Meteos, right?
Yep.
So Meteos, he was going into top lane, and they were able to get off a kill pretty early in the game, and they were playing a little bit, I don't know how to say it. Maybe they were,
Aggro?
they were a little aggro more than they should have, and they made some bad calls and bad placement and things like that, and the rest of the game was just a shit stomp all over them. It was kind of entertaining to watch on the very first game.
Yeah, I think NA was way more of a stump than you, because at least like G2 tried to stay competitive. They were able to get like early towers. They were able to get a bunch of objective in the game. In 103 versus Liquid, 103 didn't get a single dragon in 3 games, not one.
Wow. Good lord.
If I'm not
Yeah, I
mistaken, wasn't every single game in EU wasn't G2 like in front early game, and all 3 games were basically comebacks from Fnatic?
Yeah, pretty much. G2 got an early lead in every game. More so in the first game especially, and it was basically like Fnatic playing all the team fights way better.
So
I think one of the biggest difference was also like we can talk about like Reckless Gideon and such, but if you watch him in team fight, you can watch his positioning compared to Yarden. Think of yourself, when was the last time you saw Reckless get cut by CC or anything, or being too much in front of his team? It almost never happened.
yeah,
No,
he had no deaths in any of the
Yeah.
games.
Yeah.
He did not die once in the whole series.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, what does that say about Reckless as a player, though? Like, I think he gets criticized previously for being too safe of a player, but I never really saw that as a bad thing because, I mean, you farm up and you carry late game, like what every ADC should do.
Yeah, it's not like Reckless can go am, because sometimes you see him just like W flash on Tristana and go am in team fight, but you know that when he does, he can't pull it out, because I think he's a very intelligent player. He knows when to back off, and he knows when he can get in and win the team fight from it.
Yeah,
It
and-
sounds like Reckless isn't so reckless.
Hey, this guy, the wizard, everyone.
Yeah, never
So-
mind, I'm out of here.
But you know, I also think like Tristana was super clutch for them. Like even the casters themselves were saying that whenever you put Reckless on Tristana, basically you were playing Russian roulette.
Well,
Because
that brings me to my next point, though, is you can't ban out Reckless because his champion pool is absolutely insane. If you ban out every ADC, he has Cannon ADC in his back pocket.
yeah, but
Yeah,
do you think that allowing Tristana for 2 games was smart for G2? At least like the final game, because he carried so hard on Tristana the first game.
What do you think, Pagan?
I think trying to banning out Reckless is kind of silly. You tried maybe to ban the big meta picks that have Iron Pack, like G2 ban Xayah pretty much every game because the Xayah Rakan combo is so fucking good in pro play.
Mhm.
But after that, I think it's kind of a waste, because in semifinals, if I remember correctly, there were like 5 or 7 bans on ADC, and Reckless just like picked Ezreal and wrecked everyone with it. Anyway,
Yeah.
and if you ban too much ADC, you let other things open for the rest of the, like, you know, you're gonna leave maybe Swain open for Caps to play or shit like that.
I want to
Yeah.
bring up a question real quick, and it's really open to discussion. But Reckless won MVP for EU. Do you think it's because he's overperforming, or is it because EU as a whole has gone down in terms of skill because of players leaving for NA?
I think it both. I think people like Yankos really stepped up this season. Perks has always been solid. I think the top teams with the top people have consistently performed and been good in the EU. I do think that losing Sven and Mithy didn't seem to be that big of a deal because look at them on TSM. I mean, it's Yawn Fest. And I don't know if it's a language barrier. I guess their English isn't as good as like regular English. I don't know. but I think that the loss of EU talent to North America, and forgive me, anyone that watches this in Europe, and I might be impartial to good old US of A with the red, white, and blue, but Europe just can't handle North America, man. And it might be because of all our Korean imports. But like Europe, come on. Just I mean, yeah, they're not as good as we are.
We're taking their talents and beating them with it.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing.
We're-
It's just America.
Yeah. Hey, we're a melting pot of people, right? So
Yes.
so I mean, yeah, welcome to America. Leave your other country because it sucks.
Jesus.
I apologize.
It's a
I
bold
think
statement.
I think Europe historically has more the tendency of trying out rookie than NA does. Like you could see with Chizuki from Vitality, for example, the split that comes absolutely out of nowhere and stomp pretty much the early split. But about Yarden and Reckless getting MVP, I think it's mostly because the difference between Reckless and other ADC in Europe is way more huge than any other role. Like I think the other roles in EU are more closer than the ADC position, where Reckless is clearly the best ADC in Europe, and it's not even up to debate.
Yeah,
I agree with you
Hjarnen's
completely.
kind of a step back for sure from Reckless. Do you think that Sven was close to his skill level then?
Yeah, I think Sven was more of a challenge to Reckless than any other ADC was.
Yeah,
I'm
so
glad you brought that up though, because like right now, I mean, who's the competition for Reckless? I mean, you say that's a close or a far second is Hjarnen, but what do you guys think about the new Origins roster with Forgiven?
oh man, Forgiven is a bundle of hate, but he is amazing at ADC. I love when he joins a team, but then I know that the whole team is going to implode. Everyone's going to cry, and like they're going to eventually like just quit League for good because he's on their team and he says that they play horrible.
Sounds like a great fella.
Yeah, he's
Well,
wonderful. Invite him over for dinner. He'll be like, "This food sucks, and you should die."
Well, it's pretty hard to tell because like every team that Forgiven was on had some internal issue, but every player that played with Forgiven also said that they had a great time playing with Forgiven. So I'm really not sure what's happening between these teams.
So this is my whole premise of Forgiven. I think that Forgiven is North America's Dardic. I think that they join a team, they're amazing until they start losing. Once they start losing, it's never their fault, it's the team's fault, you know? And so, and that is one of the biggest things that's a problem with both of those players, is that they can't recognize that, you know, if something's going amiss, it might not be just the team that's holding them back. Now, they're both great players, but it's this game is a team game, and you can't always play it the way that you want it played.
For sure.
So, you know what? We talked about Europe. Let's talk about a little bit about North America. All right. So
Good old US of A.
North America, like I said, you guys really screwed the pooch with that entry. Oh my life. Gosh. I mean, I think Cody's son's name was said for about 10 minutes in length. Cody's son.
That bad, huh?
I guess they had to fill it in because there was nothing else for the start of the game really that was interesting. So,
Don't they normally at least do something like some kind of something like they like bad cosplay or something?
yeah,
Don't they?
like a puppet show would have been great. Something like that, anything. But
Watching paint dry.
Yeah, like watching paint dry.
yeah, they didn't do anything. But gosh,
They should just have Pentakill perform. That'd be amazing.
yeah. Oh, dude, that would be great. Yeah, have people cosplay as Pentakill and do it right. I will say this about like the shoutcasters in general. So I kind of dogged like the players a little bit in Europe.
Yeah.
I will say that their shoutcasters, I think, are more on at least Deficio. I think Deficio is one of like the natural treasures of the industry. He is always on point with like his knowledge of the game and stuff.
I mean, going back and looking at old VODs and stuff, you can still see how much better they've gotten in shoutcasting. Because, like, if you watch really old ones from like season 2 or season 3, they just like it's completely different. The information they're providing is way better. The things that they're saying are way better. Whereas back then, it felt like they were just trying to fill up dead air with whatever nonsense was coming out of their mouths. Every video that I've watched of recent games, they've all been, the shoutcasting's been fantastic in my eyes, but I'm still a noob to the whole esports scene, so I'm learning as I go.
So yeah, so 100 Thieves versus Team Liquid. So two things happened during these finals. One was G2 lost their crown and gave it back to Fnatic. They were on a four split win streak, and then Fnatic finally took back the title. So that was kind of amazing. But more so in NA, here are two teams that have never, well, here are two teams that have never been a finalist, have never won. Go ahead.
Actually, as soon as the semifinal, we were guaranteed a new champion in NA.
Yeah. And I was super excited for it because, as much as I really like Cloud9, I respect TSM, not always their decisions on roster changes, but I respect them as an organization and CLG. But it was nice to see like the old guard kind of being pushed back and then a new team come into the forefront. So, Mark, were you happy for the outcome of who won?
Oh yeah, as a Double Lift fan, naturally I was happy to see him win. But I think we need to give Liquid Steve praise for. He basically went all out, and there's always the meme about Steve paying for Team Liquid and just spending money on their roster play. I think this was his best move by far. He went all out, got the right roster, and he seemed to build his roster around Double Lift, and I think it worked out and it paid off.
I think he also had Poe Belcher in mind as well.
I mean, these are people that already played together. Xmity, Poe Belcher, and Double Lift were on the CLG when they won 2015 Summer Split. So they're players that were already used a bit to play together.
That's true, and I think even though Team Liquid, this is their first title that they've won, their roster has a bunch of champions. I mean, Double Lift, before this title, he had three titles, I believe. He could have possibly won 2 more with TSM. Next, Vivi and Poe Belcher have a couple under their belt, and the others they have international success.
How about you, Pagan? Were you happy with who won the NA?
Yeah, really. I think that I'm really curious to see how TL will do on the international stage. I think that TL showed like great strength, especially on their vision control, their ability to also rotate the map and make plays. For example, one of the biggest thing that happened in this series also is watch the draft, and Ryu was always on a champion that should be able to roam and rotate the map. He was on on Rise and on Talia, with each of them have an ultimate that makes you,
Applies pressure, yeah. For
yeah,
sure.
applies pressure, and you can rotate the map and you can teleport and make plays. And Pole Belter was an Azir every game, and he always roam first. He was always there to make plays with his team, and Ryu was kind of stuck mid lane because like TL had so much like great vision in the mid jungle, and they could always see Ryu when he would like go to a side lane to try and use his ult.
It's kind of funny that you mentioned that about Poe Belter because first game, like, he pretty much just had assists. He didn't do all that much. Second game, he started picking it up. And then the third game, like, he absolutely blew it out of the water.
Yeah.
He had an amazing KDA. And do you think that, so he was MVP also. Do you think that that was a rightful position, Matt?
I mean, absolutely. I don't know if I'm necessarily the most qualified person to answer that, but I mean, one thing that strikes me about these about the matches compared to EU is that the total amount of deaths and kills from both teams is just insanely low. Like if you look at the first game, 100 Thieves got 6 kills and Team Liquid got 9 kills. But if you look at EU, like they were putting out 20 plus per game. So it just shows you how much more refined the skills are of the people in NA, or at least at the moment, because these people are trying not to die as much as possible and succeeding at that. It's incredible to look at in my eyes.
What do you think was the failure of 100 Thieves to clinch the title? What do you think attributed to their loss? A lot of people are blaming Medios. Do you think that's fair, Mark?
Dude, this is kind of hard because you can't really call them a team full of newbies, but I think one of their downfalls was kind of putting all their chips with Cody-san to kind of carry them. Every single game they played 3+ tanks, and it was up to Cody-san to deal out the damage, which he did a good job, but I don't think that was the right kind of direction they should have gone in. You have Sunday top lane, you have Ryu, who's very solid. But all 3 games, they made their bet that, Cody-san would carry them, and he didn't. And unfortunately, they didn't have success there.
Yeah.
I think Team Liquid also just had a giant morale boost too, just from the whole thing that happened with Doublelift's mom and his brother and all that. Like that had to have been a huge morale boost and a huge motivator for them as well to be able to come. That's a shining moment type of thing. If they were to pull out the win, which they did, that's something that is incredible media attention. There's so many benefits that would come from that. So that had to have been a morale boost for them as well.
Oh yeah, they definitely played inspired.
Yeah, the whole narrative with the game was blew Europe out of the water as far as like wanting to watch it. I felt like there was so much hype for the game because you're like, oh, this is where, like, is Doublelift gonna like implode on himself like a dying star, or is he gonna rise to the occasion?
For sure.
And he didn't look like affected at all. I mean, I'm sure that he was, but he looked like super professional with it. He just went in, he went to do a job. And one of the worst things TSM could have done, in my opinion, was drop him. And one of the best things that Liquid did was pick him up.
Yeah, for sure.
I got to give credit to Xmithy a lot, though. I think that Baron Steel and then just the pressure that he applied to the map was amazing. I actually do think that Medios cost them the game.
Yeah.
After watching it. And I don't want to say that negatorily towards Medios because I am a fan. I think that he's a good player. But I think that he was off his game. I think after the first game, he just really kind of wandered the map and didn't do anything worthwhile. Do you agree, Pagan?
I think that both Medios and Afromo were both having off game in this series, honestly. Afromo was put on a playmaker pretty much every game, and I didn't feel that he had that much of an impact. I also feel like their jungle support synergy was kind of off. They didn't add like good vision control and all. So I think that really turned the tide around. I think Smithy is also a fucking clutch player in these kinds of situations. You check the guy, and he's always like really, really, really calm and always has his head out of the water. And he's just always able to make great decision making in these kind of pressure situation.
Yeah, no one ever gives him his due. I wonder if it's because like his name is lower on like the board alphabetically. So they're like, okay, let's talk about meteors and let's talk about these people. And they're like, wait, who's left? Oh yeah, Smithy. He's all the way at the bottom because his name starts with an X. But, like, I think that he never gets the credit that he's due. A long time ago, back with Vulcan, before they threw him on ADC because Zuna is I don't even, for people that haven't watched League, Zuna makes me have aneurysms and anal polyps. Like that guy like literally ruined one of the best teams that League ever had in my opinion. But Smithy was rising to be one of the best junglers period. Like he was just hyped up, and then after that he like kind of fell to obscurity, and he's played consistently always. Like he's always like a very giving jungler, but he can carry if he needs to too. So yeah, good job Smithy. Like
sounds like a player spotlight coming to you.
it is. Double F's next. Old DL.
Shameless plug.
Dude, like Smithy's playstyle though is, I think he's a player that you need, especially in NA, because he doesn't take up a what is it called?
An import
Resources.
Import
yeah.
slot. He doesn't take up an import slot. He's the leader that you need. He's not going to tilt. He's never going to lose you the game, but then he will occasionally win you the game. You know, he's just solid all the time, and he's probably top 3 jungler in NA for the last 4 years.
Do you think Pobelter's the best mid that doesn't take up an import slot?
That's interesting because Bjergsen is considered
Ah,
now, but then
I know.
Besides,
Gosh, Reggie bought a small country with the money that he donated for that.
Pobelter might be the best mid laner NA has ever produced. I mean, I would say high, but he's been kind of off for the last couple
High is
years.
the best shot caller, I think. In my opinion, High is the best shot caller I've ever seen. In my opinion.
Even there, like I think I had been really amazing at shot calling, but I feel like he's still a liability to a team right now because he's so behind as a player.
Yes, skills,
Yeah,
for sure.
If I were to compare High and Pobelter, I would say High, no pun intended, has the highest highs. Pobelter has, overall his career, he's always been very good. Probably top 5 every single year.
Red Raccoon, everybody.
There you go, guys. I'm out. Hey, bye.
So enough about the finals. Let's move on to just the split as a whole. We'll talk about NA first. So who do you think had the best KDA?
Who had the best KDA in the playoff?
In the whole like split.
Pretty sure it's Double Lift.
Yeah, you're right. Double lift,
Monstrously right.
double lift, killed it. But I mean, he did play more. Well, actually, Sven has the best KDA, and that blows my mind. I'm looking at it now. Sven, Bjergsen, Cody's son, Febevin, Jensen, then Double Lift. Double Lift is 6 down. In the playoffs, he had the best KDA. He had a 39 KDA. But in the splits as a whole, it was Sven. I guess, I talked trash too soon.
Well, I think,
and I mean that's just TSM's play style though. Is they're not going to give up a lot of kills, but when they do, they'll kind of turtle and just lose the game outright.
Yeah.
I think Sven and Mitty had a good split as a bot lane on TSM. I think they had a really, really, really bad playoff.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm not really sure what happened with them, honestly.
Isn't that weird? Because isn't TSM known for being good in playoffs and bad in split?
Yeah, pretty much.
But I mean, people forget that TSM looked like the best team coming into playoffs, and a lot of people had them winning it all. But I mean, obviously, one bad series against Clutch, and they're up.
And just talking about the split as a whole, we got 100 Thieves did kind of like a Cinderella run there at the end. Man, They were having some struggles kind of early in the season. They turned it around, and they did great. They deserve to be in the playoffs for sure. I think that they had a great season up until the playoffs, and then I agree with Pagan. I think they just kind of like, I don't know. Afremu was definitely off his game. Medios, and those two are leaders. Ryu's pretty quiet. I don't know how quiet Someday is, but seems like he might be. And then Cody's son's just awkward. I feel like you're like Cody's son.
Actually,
Attack the tower.
Ryu is really not quiet in game. You can heard like a couple of years ago, Vendor and Yenkas talking about it when he was on H2K and how Ryu used to shot call, and his shot call style was just basically screaming louder than everybody to get heard.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
If you guys ever seen Thorin's videos, he does this series where, like, in his talks, he would kind of refer to these segments for Ryu called, like, really? Ryu did that? And, like, it would just highlight different, like, various stories of players that played with Ryu. And he would just do the most random things. Like, he would be super loud when he's shot calling. I think one season he lost in the playoffs, and he was so angry with himself that he started chewing tobacco when he's never done it before. Just random things like that. He's like, I'm so angry.
I need a dip.
I mean, there's a bunch of fun story about Ryu being like this kind of mafia boss guy that just like, being very cold kind of. I think Prody once told that he came with Ryu with lunch and he was like, yeah, it costed like $12.50, and he was just like, okay, here's $10. Bye.
Man, speaking of Prolly, like, I'm glad you brought him up because I think Prolly is one of the greater coaches that we've had in the last few years. If you look at all the teams he's been part of, he's like brought them to a top performance.
Probably won Coach of the Split like what, 3 or 4 times at least already?
I think so, yeah. I think so. But yeah, and one of my favorite quotes that Prolly ever said was that sometimes you give your players, like, I think this is not verbatim, but sometimes you give your players candy and sometimes you give them a bag of shit. And I think that really bodes well for him as a coach to understand that each player like has a different thing that they need to perform.
Yeah, some people just run off shit.
All right, so with the finals done, let's talk about the spring split of or let's talk about the split for EU. Anyone want to guess what the highest KDA was for that split? Not the playoffs, but the split as a whole.
It would be reckless not to say reckless.
Yeah. What? It'd be reckless not to say, oh, my life.
Not to say reckless. Yeah.
Gosh. You see, like, this is the reason why you need your own shirt.
I second that. Yeah.
I know that Reckless KDA on Trist for all the split, including playoff on Tristana specifically, is 89.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm gonna say
one
that.
time all split on Tristana. That's just so fucking crazy.
I think it's kind of funny though to see that a bunch of junglers were in the top as far as like KDAs. Yankos, Broxa, I can't ever say his name. The dude on Splice. Can you say his name?
Xerxes?
Yeah. They had great splits, man. 4 junglers. Normally, you don't see junglers too high in the KDA. You usually see them with a lot of like first bloods, which I think Yankos is like the first blood king. But you normally don't see them with the higher KDAs and like ADCs in mid laners. And I guess that goes to what you were saying, how Reckless really like pushed the gap as far as like how much better he is than his peers. And then looking at the standings of the EU, where Fnatic, they pulled out the first place and then they took the finals. Do you think that it was just given that they were going to take it from the get go, Pagan?
They were pretty much a favorite for every fans and every analyst. But I don't think it was like. I expected actually the series to be a lot more close. I expected G2 to at least take a game. I don't think it was like given that they would win, but I feel like it was more less of a surprise than TL actually winning all the playoff, for example. Like, I think NA was a lot more closer with every team in playoff actually in regular split had only one win differential for all the split. So I think like NA, I think Fnatic were way more favorite than any team that could have been in NA LCS.
Okay, yeah. So with all that said, anything else that you guys want to mention about the finals before we move on? I don't know if you guys had any other thoughts that you wanted to say or anything like that.
All I'm saying is I'm glad TL and Fnatic win because we get to see. I'm actually not sure how many times Doublelift and Reckless have faced off against each other, but now they're the best in their respective regions and they're going up against each other at MSI.
Yeah, and we've already said that Sven is basically the peer of Reckless, so Doublelift's gonna just stomp him. I'm just kidding. But speaking of MSI, right? MSI, what kind of hype do you guys have for MSI this year?
I'm totally hyped up to see Kingzone stump absolutely everyone.
Yeah, I think Kingzone is the heavy favorites here. I think the only trouble they'll face is maybe IG, Invictus Gaming.
Yeah. Well, we're not even sure yet who will win LCK or LPL. The final for LCK is this Saturday with Kingzone versus Africa. I'm pretty sure Kingzone's gonna win. They're the favorite.
The only kaboom we're gonna hear is their Nexus being exploded by.
Oh!
I went there.
Oh, man, every time, Mark. Like, I peed a little. So we got Team Liquor going for North America, and then we got Fnatic going for Europe. We got in Southeast Asia Ascension Gaming. What do you guys think about them? Have you seen any of that?
Who?
Listen, every year people talk crap about like these no-name like regions, and then they come and take a game off of somebody good. Like Ascension Gaming is gonna come in. They're gonna do like some weird kind of, I don't know, a Nivea jungle, and they're gonna win a game off of like the top Korean pick.
When that happens, I will gladly applaud and buy a summoner icon. I don't know what's going on here.
So what are your predictions as far as the EU versus NA? What do you think is going to happen with that? You think we're going to...
I think, if I'm not mistaken, MSI is a double round robin, correct?
Yes, it is.
Is it? I think they're going to 2-0 EU.
Okay.
I think it's going to be they're going to be relatively close games, but I think NA has the edge this time.
What do you think, Pagan?
Honestly, I wouldn't bet anything on this. I think TL showed better vision and macro control than Fnatic in their finals.
Well, they had to though, because
I think it depends. Also, think it highly depends on the meta switch because we are not really sure how the meta will switch until MSI. I think it also depends if Soaz is gonna come back from Fnatic because I think Soaz is by far a better top laner than Whippo. That's his name. And I think actually Soaz is one of the most clutch player that the West ever had. So I think that's gonna make a big difference if he plays or not. But I think it's going to be really close. Whoever wins this game, I don't think there's a clear favorite, really.
Yeah, Soaz is always like a player that is when it comes to competition is just always clutch. Like he doesn't get shaken or anything. I think Reckless actually gets a little shaken during international competitions, and if that's the case, then it's gonna be bad. Double lift like can perform, but he can also tilt. Impact's gonna be solid in the top lane. But how about you, Matt? I know you don't know much about the European scene, and my prediction is that that TL's going to take it as well against them. They're going to perform better. I actually think that Liquid's got a really good shot of performing just good overall. I think we're going to take a lot of games, but I'm always optimistic. And then NA goes there and embarrasses me.
I don't know. I think Brazil's got it. Kabum! They're gonna kill it.
We're gonna kaboom your turrets.
Oh man! Commonwealth of Independent States. We got Gambit. The rise of Gambit.
If I'm not mistaken, isn't Diamond Prox in Gambit again?
Maybe. I thought that he quit League and joined the Russian mafia. And is now an arms dealer. I don't know. I could be mistaken.
Okay, well, let's just say if Gambit wins, then we can confirm that he's in the Russian mafia.
All right, so basically, all around, we think that TL's going to do good, but Mark and Pagan both think that Korea's going to absolutely stomp everyone else. You know what? I'm going to go with Team America is going to be.
Team Apple Pie here?
Yes. Yes.
All
the
right.
red, white, and blue is going to come out on top. And Double Lift is going to stand and bask in the awe of everyone, in the splendor of his magnificent play.
And in the background, they're going to be playing America. Fuck yeah!
I know it is risky to ape up China because of World Season 5, but if IG make it to MSI, I'm pretty sure it's going to be a race for who gets third and fourth. I don't think NA or EU is going to take a game out of Invictus Gaming because that team got insane talent in their roster.
Yeah, China also is like a bloodbath matches, man. They know how to fight, and they know when to fight. And I think they're going to look to bring the pain. Whereas Korea seems to play a much more methodical, they'll fight and stuff as well, but they play more methodical, almost perfect game. China's more diving turrets and killing people in the jungle and stuff. So yeah, MSI is going to be great. I'm super excited for that. I'm going to talk about Team Liquid a little bit again and their partnership with a company. I believe it's called Sal. I got to look it up, but it's an analytics firm. And basically the whole premise of this is that they are now going to use analytics in pro players' matches to scout out for new talent. What's your thoughts about this, Matt? We were talking a little bit about it.
I mean, I think it's incredibly intelligent. That's as time goes on in all these games, you're going to see the skill curve continue to go up and up and up and up. And so, getting people in who can just run analytics data on matches and just feed that stuff to you currently, that's freaking genius. Honestly, you're going to see more teams do that as well, just because of how smart it really is. What do you guys think,
Mark?
I have no idea on this topic, so I'll go ahead and let you guys.
Well, no, it's just your thoughts. So let's say that an analytics firm comes and they start putting in programming that looks at KDA, ward placements, positioning on a macro level, and they take that software, they take those stats that they have, and then they apply it to their scouting, and do you think that they could potentially come up with the next Faker if, for example, they run the analytics on Faker himself?
I mean, I think they can find talent that way, but I don't think analytics show everything that you need in a professional player. What they can do in a regular match that they're basing these stats on. You're not going to see them necessarily see how they're going to perform on stage, or if their nerves kind of makes or breaks them as a player. So I mean, analytics is always nice, but it's not going to show you like everything you need to know if this person's going to truly develop into the next Faker, or if he's going to bust and be the next Glebe Glarbu or something.
I mean, we also heard always like a bunch of story about how really good mechanical players stump scrim and can't translate that talent on stage. Golden Glue is one of the best example for that. We keep hearing how he's really good in scrims, like a scrim god, and like you look at him playing LCS match and he looks like a fucking monkey. So
exactly. That's why I bring his name up, because like it's not to diss him, but then he was a very good player that he scouted, and TSM wanted to replace X Special. Probably the best support in NA has ever produced at that time for this guy, because he was such a beast on on streams. But then it doesn't show how he'll react on stage, which he tilted out of his seat during games.
Yeah, I know. So mentality, yeah, you can't factor that into analytics unless you have someone shouting at the person while they're playing nonstop. Pagan be good for that. Them. Yeah, he'd be like, "Why are you playing so bad? Stop it!" At least maybe I would be a pro player there.
What the fuck is that teleport?
That's the worst call I've ever heard, Pigeon. Oh.
Teleport mostly tilt me from the enemy, but whenever I see a fucking top laner teleport to just like farm a fucking wave, I'm just like, what the fuck? That's like flashing for a cannon minion.
Yeah. Pagan might be the only one of us to get tilted off the other team.
Smiting a caster minion. Those things.
Oh my god.
Oh gosh, warding next to a bush and not in the bush.
Hey! Don't you be talking shit about my wards. They are amazing.
Oh man.
Well, I never see Meatball dying warding, so.
That is so true.
Analytics.
Oh my lord.
Moving on. You guys are jerks. I hate all of you.
Don't worry.
Yeah. All right. So, yeah, I agree with Mark. I think the analytics are going to be great. It's going to bring like a whole new. I think it's amazing for scouting, but then you have to take those scouts and then you have to apply them to tournaments. And just regular split tournaments versus international tournaments is even another level. I think the real thing that teams need to do is kind of like what I've seen in some other competitive games where they load up like a bench of players and then you sub people in and out. And I think that's one of the failings of League is that they don't sub people enough. And that's probably a good thing because you want to keep like a hot player hot. But if someone's like starting to underperform, and you're already losing games, why not like put them on the bench for a little bit, throw in another player, and let them get the needed exposure for international and like split tournaments so that you can make a more well-rounded roster.
Yeah,
and that's actually something that Korea do for like season 5 and such, having a bunch of sub and being able to like sub people out to play a different style. You see it a lot in all the top team actually. SKT did it for like a long time with 2 jungler and having 2 different styles of jungler, one more aggressive, one more vision centric with Bengi and Blank, for example. Samsung do it too with Aru and Ambition, with 2 jungler of different style, and I think like Korea has a bunch of sub always ready to take place and to play different style. I think that helps them a lot. Also with scrim, you can pretty much have a sub team which you can scrims, like secret tactics and such. I think NA is on the right path though with the sub league.
Yeah,
and
the amateurs.
You saw, and you saw Echo Fox trying out Damonte and Papacho for the mid and support role in the last game of the regular season to try out their sub. I think they kind of played pretty well for people that didn't add any LCS experience. So I think it's on the right path to happen.
For sure.
But,
and that speaks volume about like Rick Fox and him being in other sports related things. Like
Yeah.
he's already done it, and he's basically transitioning. I think it just bodes well for esports in general. And you can see like this huge influx of like new games coming out that are esports related. We got Clash Royale that just came out. H1Z1 just popped out. A Player Unknown has had something for a little bit, but they're starting to pop off with like some more esports like teams and stuff. And I think as a whole, esports is just on a rise to burst open and be something that takes the place of a lot of like, you know, on the ground football like sports.
Esports never gonna stop right now. It's just so much on the rise. For sure, we talk a lot about League, but like Dota is really really big too. Overwatch got their own league. Hearthstone and Smash Bros been still fairly popular, and there's just so much money right now in it, so much sponsor that are interested in it, that it's just about what's going to be the next game, not like is a sport going to die. Esports not going to die. It's going to be a new game that's going to be competitive.
Yeah, like I think League, for example, is kind of like CS:GO and League both, I feel, really open the door for it. And then I think that the new games like Overwatch are going to be the ones that issue into the next era.
I think that's one of the most interesting things about esports. If you look at like traditional sports, a lot of people who have been into traditional sports, they pick one or two or three or whatever, and they're familiar with all the mechanics of that particular sport. But with esports, you have all these like drastically different games that are happening, and it's dynamic. It can change. New games can come out, the old ones can fall off, etc., etc. So it's really interesting to me to watch it all go down, because you have a lot of people who are more into traditional sports that are talking so much shit about it. They're like, oh, they're just playing video games. There's no skill in that. It's not a sport if they don't sweat. Like, just
see me on the Rift, bruh.
Yeah. People just saying like crazy ignorant shit about it, but then they're like, oh, I wonder what this new $100 billion industry is. Oh, well, now you have my attention.
It just uses a different muscle. It uses your brain muscle.
Yeah. So it's just funny to watch it all go down, because we're still at the very beginning of it. Esports is going to continue to grow rapidly and monstrously, and you never know. One day it may overtake normal sports. In certain countries, not all countries, but it may overtake traditional sports and viewership one day, because the audience is one that is going to continue to grow too. More and more people are playing video games than ever. Not everybody played football at one point or baseball at one point, but almost everybody has played a video game at some point, right?
Yeah. Well, even in viewership, we're pretty much up there, because like the last Worlds had I don't remember the number. I would have to check them out.
The Super Bowl.
But yeah, I think it was a bit under the Super Bowl, but it was still like in the in the range of all these top sport events in terms of viewership. So it's up there, and there's a bunch of people that actually watch esports and doesn't even play the game.
Right.
And these things aren't even being broadcasted on like cable networks, right? Like, it's mostly you just view it on Twitch or whatever other platforms out there. So like, I'd say cable companies are shitting their pants right now trying to figure out a way to get involved in it, because they how do we tap into this? How do I make money off of this? And they can't figure it out.
There were a couple of times actually in Europe that, for example, I remember that in 2015 when I think it was the quarterfinals that was in the UK. They did broadcast it on regular television.
I think a lot of places are starting to put esports on TV though. I know in the US alone, TBS has a show where they follow different tournaments in CS:GO. And I know over in Korea they actually have TV channels dedicated to esports. So watching LCK, on Twitch, I think people in Korea are actually viewing this on their TV as well.
Yeah, well, actually, OGN, the one that used to produce all the Korean league match, is actually a TV show. Yeah, it's a TV network.
Yeah,
and if I'm not mistaken, I think SPO TV is a network as well, a TV network.
Yeah, but like in Korea, it's been way more time since esport existed as a scene. They used to play and watch way more StarCraft like 15 years ago than what we ever did. So esports in Korea is actually pretty old.
Oh yeah.
Compared to the Western scene.
So we're gonna start wrapping up our podcast now. But because it's like 8:53, we can talk about this stuff forever. And we might off stream, who knows? But I just want to kind of talk about what we're going to talk about next week. We're going to talk about actually game failures, like in the recent events. Sea of Thieves is one. Far Cry 5.
Yeah. It wasn't a failure. Far Cry 5 isn't a failure.
It's mixed. There's mixed reviews.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just saying there's mixed reviews.
How about it isn't meeting your traditional fans' expectations?
Okay, gotcha. The letdowns. Right. So we're going to talk about that a bit, and we're going to kind of steer away maybe a little bit from League and talk about some other esports that are coming up. Sure. Maybe we'll go a little bit more in depth into like, I don't know, Overwatch.
Yeah.
Because we haven't really touched on that enough, I don't think, and we need to talk about some of the players and things on that. So we're going to put that together. But anyway, want to thank everyone for joining our stream, especially Pagan. So we'll let you do the honors of any shout-outs or anything that you'd like to say, Pagan, before we leave. You can start us out.
Well, thank you for having me. And that's pretty much it. I don't really have a shout-out.
yeah, man. Thanks for coming on. You provided a lot of great information that, you filled a lot of gaps that we might have had today. So it's much appreciated for you to come on, man.
Yeah, I mean...
was fun.
We can't always carry Mark.
Yeah, I'm a pretty heavy record.
Hey, Mark, did Lorenzo or your friend like say that he was going to watch your podcast? What's his name?
He wasn't at work today, so I couldn't spam him.
And then Jackie's still not here. So that goes. Those are my shout outs. You guys are bad friends.
Yeah, he's my boy.
All right, sweet. So with that said, yet again, thank you guys for listening to our podcast. Hope to see you next week, Thursday, 8 o'clock. And we got some other cool content coming out. But as always, please go to our store at www.ogretribe.com and get some righteous gear because it's just cool stuff. We know you're going to like it. We like it. And... that's it.
It's a glorious segue.
Glorious segue.
Shout out to Toast for watching the whole stream.
And he's not really watching. I don't think he's taking a bath. he's like
he's listening to us on his
just long enough
glorious,
for me
like $200
take my bath. Yeah.
He's bathing in the tears of 100 Thieves fans.
Oh God. Salty tears.
Yes. Oh, well, with that said, thank you all once again. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.